And guys, I don't know if you realize this, but today is Columbus Day, or as you may know it, Indigenous Peoples Day, if of course you're a loser. I would never say Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, just for the record. I would only say Happy Columbus Day. This triggers the left. They think that Christopher Columbus was an evil person. They claim he's a mass murderer who engaged in genocide, slavery, all different kinds of accusations against imperialism, accusations of personal bad character. And I just want to spend today, in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, debunking these lies about Christopher Columbus. First of all, he was not a mass murderer. He's someone we should honor because he did found America. So why wouldn't we celebrate Columbus Day? Are we not proud of our heritage? Well, you and I are, but the people that celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day are not proud of our heritage. It's also ridiculous to me that the party that wears Che Guevara t-shirts and advocates for socialism and communism are somehow offended by Christopher Columbus because in the years after his arrival in America, a humongous number of people died of smallpox, not genocide. But they claim he's a genocidal maniac, even though he wasn't. So let's go through some of these accusations. Was Christopher Columbus, did he commit genocide? Did he engage in slavery? Was he engaging in imperialism? And was he a person of bad character? Well, before we get to that, I just want to say, let's understand that the purpose of these accusations are to demonize white men. Christopher Columbus was, in fact, a white man, if you didn't know. The purpose is to demonize white men and America in order to justify the left's current agenda, to tear down our country, tear down our rule of law, tear down our government. So, genocide. Did Christopher Columbus commit genocide? The answer to that is no. It's a historically ignorant claim to claim that Christopher Columbus was a mass murderer. The truth is that, according to historians, the population of North America in 1492, the year that Columbus landed, was approximately 20 million people. Within 2 centuries, that's 200 years, by the way. Christopher Columbus was long dead by that time. Approximately 95% of that 20 million people were dead. Now, clearly something happened. What was that? Was it genocide? No, it wasn't genocide. This 95% of 20 million people were killed almost entirely by disease, by smallpox. That is not genocide. It did not happen during Christopher Columbus' lifetime, nor was it propagated by Christopher Columbus himself. So, was Christopher Columbus was he engaged in genocide? No, he wasn't. Was he a slave owner? Did he engage in slavery? Well, the answer to that is yes, he did. And that's wrong. And there's no excuse for that. And there's no justification for that. There is an explanation for that. The explanation for that is almost everybody at that time engaged in slavery. Didn't matter what color skin you had. Almost everybody took part in slavery. Again, doesn't make it morally right. It's always morally wrong. But the context of the time was it was normal. It was common. People did that back then. And the natives did that. The natives took slaves of each other. They warred against each other and took each other as slaves and killed each other and raped each other. And apparently, so Christopher Columbus also engaged in slavery. Doesn't make it right. It does change the context of how the left tries to portray Christopher Columbus. Did he engage in imperialism? Well, that depends on what you mean by imperialism. Did he come to the United States of America and claim this land? Yes, he did. Why? Well, he did this because he was trying to finance a crusade to reclaim Jerusalem after it had been taken by Muslims. He wanted so Christ could come back and save the Christians, essentially. And he wasn't trying to find America. He was trying to find Asia. But it depends what you mean by imperialism. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? It was a good thing. It's the history of the world. And I know snowflakes are going to be really triggered by this, but conquest of nation and of land is part of the history of the world. It's also what the Native Americans engaged in. They consistently and routinely claimed land from each other by going to war with each other. So was Christopher Columbus engaged in imperialism? Kind of, but not the bad kind. Lastly, was Christopher Columbus a man of bad character? Well, this one is really interesting because the accusations of bad character come from a document that was unearthed that was written by a man by the name of Francisco de Bobadilla. Francisco de Bobadilla was a chief political rival at the time of Christopher Columbus who wrote a so-called indictment against Christopher Columbus's character. But the way that I look at it is it would be like Hillary Clinton writing the history of Donald Trump's 2020 election. Can you really trust the bias of the person who was the chief political rival of Christopher Columbus? I think not. I think you absolutely cannot. So was Christopher Columbus any of the things that the left claims he was? No, he wasn't. So happy Columbus Day. Do not celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day because it's the left's way of trying to demonize the United States of America.